All right, so now let's look at solubility curves. Here we have the solubility of ammonia gas versus the temperature of water that it's dissolved in. And so this is called the solubility curve. And a solubility curve is basically a graph that shows us how much solute can dissolve in a particular amount of solvent whenever we change the temperature. And so what we notice here is that on the x-axis, we have the temperature. Let me go ahead and show that. So on the x-axis, we have the temperature. On the y-axis, we have the solubility. In other words, how many grams of that solute can dissolve in 100 milliliters of the solvent. In this case, we're using water to dissolve it. And so basically we have this line. This line is telling us how much it takes to make a solution of 100 grams of water completely saturated. That's kind of like the borderline. Anything that's underneath that line would represent a solution that's unsaturated. So that combination of that many grams at that temperature could still hold more solute. And any combination that's above that line would be a supersaturated solution, meaning that you could not have that much solute dissolved at that particular temperature. But if you do, then that means your solution is technically supersaturated. So take your color pencils and make sure that you also color in your key. So anything underneath the line is unsaturated. So use your color for that. Anything that's on the line is going to be considered saturated. And anything that's above the line is going to be considered supersaturated. So what kind of solutions do you have if you have these combinations? Let's start with, if you are given 100 grams of water, what type of solution would be present if you dissolve 20 grams of NH3 at 20 degrees Celsius? So how do we do this? What we do is we go to 20 grams of NH3. So that's going to be found on the y-axis. So that's 20 grams right there. And then we're going to go to 20 degrees Celsius. And the 20 degrees Celsius is on the x-axis. And then we're going to see where those 2 points meet. So notice how those 2 points meet right here underneath the line. And since it's underneath the line, then that would represent an unsaturated solution. Now let's try the next combination. Dissolve 10 grams of NH3 at 70 degrees Celsius. So what I do is I find my 10 grams, so that's on the y-axis, and then I find my 70 degrees Celsius, and that's on the x-axis, and then I see where that combination meets, and I notice that that combination is right on the line, and so then that would represent a saturated solution. And then you're going to be looking at the next portion, which is going to be 60 grams of NH3 at 40 degrees Celsius. So again, 60 grams, that's on the x-axis, and then 40 degrees Celsius, that's on the x-axis. So sorry, 60 is on the y, 40 is on the x. You're going to see where those 2 points meet. And then notice that they meet here above the line. So that would be considered a supersaturated solution. All right, so now let's take a look at the last question. Between which 2 points did the ammonia solution change from being unsaturated to being saturated? So pause the video here, try the question by yourself, and then press play whenever you're ready to go on. All right, let's tackle this question. We're going to find each of these points and we're going to label what kind of solution they're making. So we're going to start with V. V is over here underneath the line, so that's unsaturated. Here's W. Here it's on the line, so that's saturated. So it looks like this one might be the answer, unsaturated to saturated. But let's continue. W, we already said that that was saturated. And then X is in this blue section above the line, so that's supersaturated. So that can't be the answer because that's saturated to supersaturated. We're going to check point Y. Point Y is along the line, so then that's saturated. And then point Z, also along the line, so that's just saturated to saturated because it's all along the line. And then Y, we said, is on the line, that's saturated. And X is supersaturated. So that goes saturated to supersaturated. So that's not the correct answer. The correct answer is A. So here's what you're going to do, because these are the first 3 questions, not only on the piece of paper that you've been given, but also in your Google form. So in that Solubility Curves Google form, you're going to go through, you're going to put what your first name, what your last name is, what your class period is, and then you're going to click next. And then notice how these questions that we just answered are the first questions that are on the Google form. So notice that the first combination was unsaturated, the second combination was saturated, and the third combination was supersaturated. And then it has the same question, which is between which 2 points does it go from saturated to unsaturated, from unsaturated to saturated, and see we collected answer choice A. Then you're going to click next. Okay, when you're ready to move on, then click on the next video and we'll do the next section.